Hello friends, welcome back. It has been the longest time since I've filmed this sort of video letting you know what I've been reading in the past month, and I don't know why I stopped really. I think I just felt like I wasn't the best at explaining plots or why I like certain books. A lot of the times when I read a book I just know I've enjoyed it, but I can't always explain why. But I actually really enjoy watching other people's videos, their sort of recommendations, what they've been enjoying reading recently. And this past month has not been very adventurous. When I was looking through, it gave me a little chuckle because I've been subconsciously working my way through Agatha Christie's list of books, and this month, out of the 4 books that I read, or last month rather, out of the 4 books I read, 3 of them were Agatha Christie books. So yeah, I thought that we would just sit down, have a very informal chit chat, and I'd be brutally honest if I can't quite remember much about the story. I think when I looked at the list, 4 out of the 4 books I can remember mostly what they're about and why I liked them. But sometimes I think when you're busy and you do really enjoy a book, but then life gets in the way and you just know you've enjoyed it but you don't entirely know or remember why. Although every once in a while, like one of them that I read that finished off the month of September actually was just amazing, and I've added that to my favourites list. So yeah, that's coming up. So let me have a quick drink and then we'll dive straight into it. Before we start as well, I actually don't have any of the books that I read physically because I either borrowed them from the library, listened to them through the library app, or a friend lent it to me. So yeah, that's why I'm going to be showing you the front covers on my iPad, just to have something to hold up really. But yeah, at the beginning of September I finished off Richard Osman's Thursday Murder Club, and I feel that this book needs no introduction. I have seen this book all over social media, I've seen it in newspapers, in bookshops. It really is the book of the season, I feel. And it had been on my to-read list for quite some time, but recently I've been trying not to buy too many books because I just don't have the space for them. So I had sort of reserved it at my library, both Fife and Edinburgh, hoping that I would get it soon, but the list was just so long. And then my mum actually visited one of our family friends and she'd been given it for her birthday by one of her children, so I got to read it through her, thankfully. But yeah, I was so excited. It sounded exactly what I love reading. It's cosy, it's a murder mystery, and it takes place in a retirement village, which just sounds so sweet. So yeah, I sat down and I read this, and I think I read it pretty quickly, if I'm not wrong. And if you haven't heard of it, it takes place in England in a little retirement village, and while the rest of the residents are enjoying sort of a chess club, dance club, that sort of thing, 4 or 5 residents get together to solve old unsolved murders, because one of them in the group used to be an ex-police woman, I believe, and before she left the force, she made copies of all the unsolved cases, and every Thursday, hence the name, they get together to try and solve these cases. So it starts from there, and then it happens that a murder takes place in the village. So of course they're saddened by the murder, but they are very excited to be able to solve a real life murder mystery. So they get together to solve this mystery, and it's a roller coaster ride. There's just lots of things happen to them. It's a very humorous book as well. So first of all, my thoughts. I think because I went in with very high expectations, I maybe didn't enjoy it quite as much as I hoped I would, but I still really did enjoy it, and I would recommend it because it has all the cozy feelings, and the characters are my absolute favourite part of the book. They were just so entertaining and hilarious, and I've spoke to a few other people that have read the book and they all love the characters as well, and it's quite interesting to speak to people who have read the book, which is their favourite character. Personally, I think the 2 elderly gentlemen were my favourites. I remember saying that to someone, although I can't quite remember why now. I think that I just found them the funniest. But then I've spoke to other people who love Joyce, who's a new member, I believe, to the Thursday Murder Club. So yeah, if you have read this book, let me know in the comments. Did you enjoy it, first of all? Did it live up to the hype? And what was your favourite character? I really did enjoy it. I think just because I have been reading an awful lot of Agatha Christie books, she just blows my mind with how she manages to craft such an intricate sort of plot that at the end seems so simple. And you can just see, yeah, she's just the queen of mystery. And so yeah, I think perhaps if this had been my first, or towards the beginning of my murder mystery reading, I would have been really impressed with it and I would have loved it. But I think just because I have been reading an awful lot of Agatha Christie books, that maybe the mystery I was a little bit slightly disappointed in, but I loved the characters so much that it made up for it, and the setting. And yeah, I don't know how to rate this book actually. Maybe a 3.5 out of 5, maybe, or a 4. It is really good. Will I be reading the next book? Potentially, but I'm not like rushing out to buy it when it first comes out. Maybe if I see it in a little library, or if the library happens, I'm sure it'll be a long waiting list on the library, so I might read it like next year or something. But yeah, I did enjoy it, and I feel like because it was so hyped up, I have read a lot of books like Where the Crawdads Sing. I know that's a huge favourite, but it just wasn't 100% my favourite. I did enjoy it, but yeah, I feel like whenever I read books that are really hyped up, I don't tend to enjoy them as much as I thought and hoped I would. But yeah, I would recommend the Thursday Murder Club if you're just after something that's cosy with great characters and nothing too dramatic happens. It's lovely. It's a really cosy read. The next book of the month I listened to through the Libby Library app, and it's An Appointment with Death by Agatha Christie. Again, because I was listening to it through like my earphones and I wasn't reading it, some parts of the story I did gloss over because I love listening to it when I'm out walking, and sometimes if I get distracted I don't always remember certain parts of the story, and I actually remember painting my front door while listening to this, so I did get distracted sometimes. But I did really enjoy this story. The setting is in the Middle East, and I heard that Agatha Christie used to follow her husband, who was an archaeologist, to the Middle East, so it was really interesting reading this because it was like a glimpse into that era when she would have been travelling about. I think it takes place in Jerusalem and Petra, potentially, and it follows a family, the Boynton family, on their holidays from America. They're quite a well-off family and they're travelling around the Middle East, and Mrs. Boynton, the mother of the family, is a real tyrant. She seems to enjoy sort of belittling her children, putting them down, and they aren't really allowed to socialise with anyone outside of the family. So she was an extraordinarily unlikable character. And then we have a few other stories taking place. So that family comes across, oh, I wish I could remember her name, but they come across a girl and she tries her best to help the children of the family to sort of escape the mother a lot of the book. I don't think that's giving too much away, I hope not. And then of course there's a murder, and Poirot is there to try and solve it. So before I was sat down to film this video, I was trying my best to remember what I liked about this book, and I think it was very much the impossibility of the murder. I really couldn't remember. The thing is, I have watched the TV series, so I had a kind of thought of who could have done it, but I think that the TV series really changed the ending, if I'm not wrong. So that was fine. I had no idea who could have possibly done this murder, and it was so fun trying to figure it out and go along with Poirot and just also see this family try and escape their mother, basically. So yeah, that was the second book I read in September. Okay, so the third book of the month is They Came to Baghdad by Agatha Christie once again. And this was just such a different and interesting book to read by Agatha Christie, because normally she does murder mysteries like Poirot, and even the standalone ones that I have read tend to be murder mysteries. So I went into this expecting a murder mystery, but it was actually more of a spy, thriller, adventure, and it was just so fun to see her in a slightly different genre. So the story follows its main character, Victoria Jones, and it starts off with her in London at a secretary job during, I think it's during the war, if I'm not wrong, or just after the war. Yeah, it takes place just after the war. And she is a very adventurous girl, and she's really not enjoying her office job, so she just quits right at the beginning of the book. And while she just quit, she sat in the park, she met a young man that she ends up falling in love with all of a sudden, and follows him to Baghdad because that's where he is off to work. So that's where the story begins, and she is just on a roller coaster adventure ride because she leaves with no money. She manages to get her passage to Baghdad, and when she gets there she has no money. So it's just, and lots of things happen to her. I don't want to give too much away. I could explain the whole book because I remember this one quite vividly because I really enjoyed it and I read it, a physical book, so it was easier to pay attention to all the little details. But I really don't want to give too much away because I went into it not knowing a whole lot, and I think that's why I enjoyed it so much, because it was a lovely surprise. But yeah, there's just a wonderful twist in it as well. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but things aren't as they seem, basically. And I really enjoyed this book. It's just felt like armchair travel. Again, she's going throughout Baghdad, and I'm assuming that's maybe where Agatha Christie also travelled with her husband, but I'm not sure. But I would highly recommend this book. I would give, I don't think I rated the last book, did I? I think I forgot. The last book I would maybe give it a 3.5 as well, I think. But maybe maybe a 4 if I read it as a book. But I would give They Came to Baghdad a 4 because I just really enjoyed this book, and I would happily read it again in a few months. I think that that's something that I might do, and this was a borrowed copy from the library, so I'm looking to get myself my own copy. Okay, so the last book of the month is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, and it's kind of funny how I've read it in order. Like this is the book that I enjoyed the most and is being added to my favourites list, and the last book was definitely the second most enjoyable book of the month as well. But yeah, And Then There Were None, I feel like this is another one that doesn't need a whole lot of introduction. It's a classic Agatha Christie book, and it's taken me so long to read it because I made the mistake of watching the very, very good BBC adaptation on, I think it's still on Acorn TV. If you're in the UK, then you can watch it there. If you have read the book, I would highly recommend reading the book first. And I just didn't, I was trying to wait quite a long time after watching it to read the book so that I wouldn't remember all the details. And even now when I was reading it, I thought I remembered who did it, and I really didn't. It was such a surprise at the end, and it's definitely, personally, I feel one of the cleverest books in my opinion that she's written. It starts out with 10 strangers being invited to Soldier Island, which is off the English coast, I believe. So they don't know each other, they turn up, and they've all been invited for very different reasons, so they're quite confused when they see each other. Like there's a young man called, I think, Tony Marsden, and he was invited under the impression that it would be a sort of a house party with people his age and a very modern, you know, party. So he's quite surprised when he turns up, and there's an elderly judge, a secretary who's there to work. It's a very mixed group of people. So they head off to Soldier Island, and one of the things that I loved about this, it was a sort of a background detail, but when they set off to Soldier Island it was very sunny, and I felt that really was, I don't know, it kind of conned them into thinking that everything was going to be lovely. They're going for a little holiday in the sunshine on an island. and it would be lovely. And then slowly throughout the book the weather just gets worse, which I really loved, that little detail. So yeah, they turn up at the island expecting to be welcomed by their hosts, Mr. and Mrs. Owen, and they're not there. It's just the two servants, the butler and the cook, that are there to welcome them, and they have their dinner. And also in each room there's a poem about the 10 little soldiers, so they think it's very sweet that they're on Soldier Island and each room has a poem, but that's very integral to the story and I won't say anything more about that. But yeah, they sit down, have their dinner, and then things start to happen, and it's just such an atmospheric, wonderful read for this time of the year on a rainy, drizzly, stormy day. If you feel like a thriller to read, this is the one. And the way that Agatha manages to tie up all the strings at the end is just so impressive. I was reading it, and even though I have seen the TV show, that's not at all how I remembered it ending. I couldn't imagine how she was going to tie everything up, because yeah, there's just lots of questions, and she did such a good job of explaining things in a very simple manner, I guess. Yeah, I feel like I'm not doing a great job at explaining it, but if you do enjoy murder mysteries, thrillers, atmospheric reads, this, you have to read it. Definitely would highly recommend. It's, I think, by far my favourite book I've read of hers. To be fair, I enjoy every one of her books. I haven't come across one that I haven't. I've just actually started reading the Tommy and Tuppence mysteries, and I really enjoy them too. I've been trying to listen to them at the, like, through the library app, but they only have, I think, 2 at the moment, and they're both narrated by Hugh Fraser, who plays Captain Hastings and Poirot. I'm going off on a tangent, but yeah, I would really recommend those as well if you like listening to books. He does a great job. They're really cosy and relaxing to listen to, and Tommy and Tuppence mysteries are quite light-hearted in a sense. Yeah, and the books that I've read so far, I'm still listening to one at the moment. The first one I read was the very first book, and I think the one I'm reading at the moment is potentially one of the last. So yeah, I'm hoping to read more of their series because I've really enjoyed them. But yeah, I would definitely give a 5 out of 5 to And Then There Were None, and I borrowed this copy, well, not this copy, I borrowed a copy from my local library in Fife, so I'm going to be on the lookout for a nice copy to own myself, because I can see that this would be one that I would read every so often, maybe every 2 years. I can see myself reading this over and over again, because I think now, knowing how it turns out in the end, I think it'd be fun to read it from the beginning, to notice all the little clues maybe that she's left along the way. But yeah, I hope that you enjoyed that. I definitely feel a little bit rusty talking about books again. If you have read anything recently that you've enjoyed and would recommend, let me know in the comments. I'd love to get your recommendations. In general, I tend to stick to a few specific genres like science fiction, murder mysteries and thrillers, but I'm always open to other genres as well. If there's anything that you have read recently, then I'd love to hear about it. Yeah, I'm off to, it's a really drizzly day here today, so I'm thinking I'm going to read my book and have a cup of tea and then eventually edit this video. So I will see you very soon, and thank you again for watching. Take care, bye!